Today I present to you my work from home survival guide with 7 tips for working remotely from home so that you can be more productive and not go crazy in the process. So number 1 is you want to pick a dedicated space in your house where you are going to work when you're at home. You want to pick a place that's basically separate from where you do most of your personal activities and your family activities. Personally, I have my own dedicated office, so that is the place that I go within my house to do work most of the time. And so if you do not have a dedicated room that you can use for your office, you will have to get a little bit creative. So now some people would say that you should never work in your bedroom, for instance. But I would actually disagree with that. I think the main principle is that you want to keep your home life and your work life separate, especially if you're an entrepreneur, because it's so easy to blend those two and have them kind of impede on each other. You definitely don't want to be working when you're supposed to be playing or when you're supposed to be spending time with your family. So having those two separate spaces allows you to kind of make that mental shift from one thing to the other. So if your bedroom is all you got, I think that's totally fine, mostly because a lot of us nowadays, we don't spend a lot of time in our bedroom. We spend more time in our family room or in our living room, and that's the case for me. So I would probably not want to work in my living room, but it's great that I do have my dedicated office, so I don't have to worry about that. So once you've found a place where you're going to work, the next thing you need to do is set some boundaries for your kids and your wife, because otherwise they can feel like you're a little bit more accessible because you're working from home. Even if you have a dedicated office, you just want to make it clear what your work hours are and when your work hours are not. And again, this goes for both your kids and even your spouse, because they may not be used to you being at home. So this kind of just sets up the boundary so that you can still get your dedicated work done, and then once you're finished, you'll be ready to play and hang out. Tip number 3, use a combination of headphones and music to drown out any noise that's unavoidable or just any distractions. And I definitely don't recommend that you listen to your favorite band either. You should listen to maybe classical music or some sort of ambient music that can just drown out any loud noise. So point number 4 is something that I'm sure you're already aware of, but I'm going to give you a few pointers within this, which is to do all of your meetings and all your calls through video call. Of course, ideally you'd want to meet in person with someone. You can't beat that, but a close second is doing a video call, and I'm using Zoom right now. A lot of people are a little bit insecure about doing their video calls from home because you just never know what could come up. You don't know if the UPS man is going to ring the doorbell. You don't know if your kids, if their kids are home, might be yelling or crying in the background. But the thing is, people are a lot more forgiving than you realize if you just kind of say, hey, I'm sorry about the noise, I'm actually working from home today. You'd be surprised how many times I've done that, and people don't even worry about it. In fact, the thing that actually makes it more awkward is when you kind of just act like it's not even happening. If you remember a video from a few years ago, it was I think like a news broadcast where it showed a guy who was actually in his home, and his daughter walked in from behind and was playing, and he just kind of tried to act like it wasn't even happening, and that's kind of what made it more humorous. So honestly, just recognize that this is part of it, and I think people are going to be a lot more forgiving, especially during this time. So just let them know, hey, I'm working from home today. But one way that you can try to avoid this altogether is really just trying to time block all of your meetings at one particular time on one particular day. If you know that there's a particular day that your wife is going to be out with the kids, or if you're going to have the house to yourself during that time, that would be a good day to block all of your meetings back to back. That way you don't have to worry about that background noise. Another pointer that I'm going to mention is that you'll see how grainy my video is right now. And so I've actually invested into this light right here, and this actually makes a huge difference. Watch this. So there's that one. You can kind of change the levels of it and even kind of make it a little bit warmer. And I kind of like this setting myself, and it actually works pretty well. Investing just a little bit into a light like this, which I'll provide the link for it in the description below if you want this specific one, it can really just help to up your professionalism. So number 5 is, as fast as possible, you need to develop a brand new routine while you're working from home. Now, for many of you, you're probably coming from an office situation or a typical 9 to 5 where your routine is somewhat set for you, but now you have to set your own hours and set your routine to basically set yourself up for success. So the reason for it is really just to make sure you get your work done, that you have a clear schedule that you stick to. And as you're developing this routine, one thing I might actually recommend to you is work less hours. There's been a lot of studies out there kind of showing that our typical workday, we're not really utilizing our most productive selves the entire time. If you decide to work about 6 hours instead of the full 8 hours, you're probably going to get about the same amount of work done. So if you have the flexibility to do so, consider working less hours. And a tool that I'm going to recommend to you to help you accomplish this is something called time blocking. Now, time blocking is basically a productivity tool where you basically decide from this time to this time, I'm going to work on this particular task. And in doing so, you basically say, I'm going to commit single focus to this one task. So you're not going to multitask, you're not going to go from thing to thing, you're going to work on that until you get to the point of completion. And I'm not going to go into the reasons for all of this, but by time blocking, you can actually get more done in a lot less time. And it's really about this idea of focus and also about taking back control of your schedule. So I'm actually in the middle of writing a book specifically about time blocking. So you'll be hearing a little bit more about this in the future, and I hope you'll check out the book once it's out. If it is out by the time you see this, I will definitely mention that link in the description below. So tip number 6 is actually that you need to get out of the house sometimes. My favorite thing to do is to really go work out at coffee shops. I do that about once a week at a local coffee shop. One of my favorite spots right now. But of course, if depending on when you're watching this, if you're watching this during the coronavirus, you're going to have to get pretty creative with this. I'm fortunate because this spot, the orange spot, they're open for takeout only, but they've graciously allowed me to kind of work here on their patio, use their Wi-Fi. I don't know if that's going to be possible where you're at. I'm guessing that probably a lot of the Starbucks drive-thrus are open, and a lot of those have patios too that you could also try working at. You could also go to a park. You might be able to go to a library, and even if they don't have internet, most of us have the capability to do a hotspot on our phone if you need the internet to work on your computer. So I definitely encourage you, just for your own sanity, to get out of the house sometimes, just to change up your environment, honestly. I know sometimes for some people it can be a little bit distracting to work at a place like a coffee shop. Just for you, you got to figure out what is going to work out best for you and your personality. So for my last point, enjoy yourself. Honestly, working from home does have a lot of perks. Even though it can be stressful at times when you have your wife and your kids bugging you, or maybe you have trouble focusing, just try to enjoy the aspects that do come with it and the flexibility that comes with it. For instance, I know a lot of people will say, you definitely should get dressed every day and, feel professional when you're working. But hey, you don't have to do that. You don't have to follow any set of rules. If you want to work in your pajamas all day, then why not? If you want to work outside, then why not? If you want to take a break at lunch and spend time with your kids, play with your kids, then you should definitely do that. So take this time and really have fun with it. So this has been my survival guide for working from home, especially if you're very new at it. I really hope that you found this helpful, and please, if you did, hit the like button and subscribe to get more tips for working from home, entrepreneurship, and all around business tips. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the entrepreneur life.